Hello, welcome to Britain to Beyond, the channel documenting my family's journey from living in the UK, selling everything we own, to our move to Southeast Asia currently on our travels. Now today I'm going to talk about something which I've talked about, on and off through the journey, and that's forestry. The job I left and my interest in trees and forestry, which remains. It's my passion. I'm always going to be interested in it. Always pointing at trees over there and go, ooh, look at that. And I found something absolutely fascinating, well, for me anyway. And I've been looking around Asia and I've got all these trees and they've got QR codes on them. And I was like, I'm going to have to go up to one of these trees and, take a picture of this QR code and see what it does. And I have. Finally, I've done it. And it's fantastic. It's a site called GeoTrees, and it's a database. So many of the trees in towns and cities, certainly in Malaysia, are tagged. And it tells you loads of information about that tree. So it tells you obviously what species it is, how high it is, its diameter at breast height, which is a measure of its width, like your breast height, its diameter. When it was planted, the area it's in, and any information about it. And a map of where it is. So this is a common thing to find in the UK. It used to be that you could get a job going around mapping trees. So you go on with a GPS and you'd be pinpointing trees so they could be managed for either safety or for many other reasons. And this is how they do it. So, but anyone can go and click the QR code to find out what tree species it is and all the other things. So here we go. This is the app here, GeoTrees. So that's a picture of the tree that I took the QR code of. If you go down, it tells you each one's got an ID number. I don't know if you can see that there. It's got an ID number. It's got a common name, the scientific name, which is a Latin name, the date it was registered, the date it was planted, any notes and remarks about it. Then it gives you the site information of like the site it's on, the plot it's on, a description of the site, and location. And then it gives you an overview. So you've got the individual tree height, the individual tree diameter, the crown base height, crown diameter. So the diameter, what the crown actually comes out to. And then you've got a map at the bottom of where it is. It's just brilliant. I'm really quite impressed with this because being interested in trees is something which, I can now go to any tree, click on it, find out what it is, when it was planted. I can get an idea of how long it takes a tree of that species to grow to the size it is, because I'm just used to tree species that's European. So, ash, oak, rowans, hawthorns, basically the European species, which are being pushed to be grown anyway. Conifer species is a little more difficult because, for example, in Scotland, you have lots of conifer plantations. They're going out of fashion. They're timber crops, but they don't really hold a lot of diversity in terms of wildlife. So they're going out of fashion, and government agencies want to plant, mixed broadleaf species rather than conifers, which isn't brilliant for timber production in the UK. So there's a bit of a argy-bargy about all of that, and there always will be. But over here, because it's quite an urban, most of the places around here, a lot of them have urban areas, but there's loads and loads of trees here. But they're managing to map all of them. And I just find this absolutely fascinating. I noticed it in Kuala Lumpur, and I was like, have they really mapped all of these urban trees quite efficiently? And I hadn't quite twigged about the QR code at that point. I was like, oh, right, that's interesting. I had noticed it, but I didn't actually take the time to take a picture of it. And then now we're in Penang, I've got more time. We were at one of the cafes for one of our world schooling meets. And I was outside and I saw one of the trees in the park, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go and take a picture. Let's have a look. And then GeoTrees came up, and I was like, oh, wow. So this means that, if I see a tree that I think is of interest, I can go and have a look at it. I can actually go and see, what work's been done to it, if anything. It's really quite interesting. And for me, as a forester, I can, the longer I stay here, the more I'm going to get used to seeing certain types of trees, and I'll probably learn the tree names and the Latin names just out of a professional interest. So in terms of, forestry in Malaysia, am I going to do any forestry in Malaysia? Well, I think it's unlikely. I've had a few comments on here from some Malaysians, thank you very much for your wise words, that I should go to some of the national parks, I should talk to some of the people that work there and see if I could start a consultancy business in forestry or potentially urban tree surgery. Do I want to do that? With the plans we've got, I think it's unlikely that certainly in the next few years that would actually be an option anyway. We've come to Malaysia as the first port of call on what may be a continued travel adventure. We don't know. We will be looking at visas at some point. Do we want to settle in one of the Southeast Asian countries? I don't know. We don't know. We're only like 3 weeks in, so we're not really sure. It would be nice to have some longer visas so we don't have to constantly be doing visa runs and border crossings and things, because probably that'll get tiresome in the future. I can see that being an issue. So yes, we may want some longer stays, but in terms of me actually working in the forestry industry in potentially Malaysia, I don't know. Maybe long-term future, but not at the moment. Am I interested in the trees and things and what goes on around here? Yes, I am. I certainly am. Because what I'm seeing is a country that's more heavily forested than the UK. They seemingly have quite a good handle on urban tree management, which is particularly sporadic in the UK. Local councils in the UK have tree officers, and trees are kind of mapped. Some of them are, some of them aren't. It's not that well managed. It depends on the council. Quite often, I'll go to a playground in the UK and go, oh, look at that tree over there. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, can you see that they're splitting in half and it's right over a playground? And things like that. There just isn't the finance, and I don't know, there doesn't seem to be a willingness to map every single tree in urban areas in the UK. But here, it seems to be, well, I'm not saying it's done better, but they've certainly got a good handle on, mapping trees. I've never ever seen a QR code on any tree in the UK. And GeoTrees potentially may be a company that's a private company in Malaysia. I don't know. If you know that, let me know down in the comments, because I am fascinated by this. And it might be that they've actually got a government contract to go around and map all these trees, and they've been given a decent budget to do it. Whereas in the UK, things are tight. The cost of things like that are not really, they're not viable. So there we go. Am I going to do forestry in Malaysia? I think it's unlikely, but I'm still hugely interested in the whole business. Whether this video will actually get any views at all, because it's something that a lot of people are just not interested in trees. But I am. That's who I am. I love trees. Right, thank you for watching, for the 8 people that watch this video, and I hope to see you again in another video if I haven't put you off.